All right, so I said I was going to record stuff as it comes to my mind. What's happening here is we're in a time loop, and you can use the time loop for your benefit unless you don't know you're in a time loop, and then it can destroy you because you keep repeating the same stuff over and over that's destroying you. But if you start to repeat good stuff, it's going to benefit you. But what's happening is the Archons are doing a change up. These unseen creatures, they're throwing things at you that you've never seen before, even though it's already happened. It's just out of sync, right? So they're throwing stuff at you. It's the same stuff, but it's just out of sync. How do I explain that? They're throwing stuff. It's kind of new stuff, but it's not new. It's new because you forgot about it. That's all. But the stuff that they've been throwing at us, we're starting to see it, And it's a mass awakening. People are not waking up to time repeating, but they're waking up to the same game being played. They're waking up to the game. So even though the mass of people do not know they're in a time loop, because time means befallen, they don't know they're in a fallen state. But everybody's waking up to the fear darts, the war, and all. There's two kingdoms, right? There's the kingdom of darkness, which is fear, guilt, anger, wrath, shame, living in the past. There's the kingdom of darkness, that the thoughts of man, the devil can read the dark thoughts, right? He's a spirit being. There's a dark side. There's a dark side to thoughts, right? But there's also a kingdom of light. And the kingdom of light is love, joy, peace, goodness, meekness, temperance, faith, whatsoever things are true, lovely, good report, think on these things. So what the devil's trying to do is man is waking up to the game. And the way that man is waking up to the game is because everything's being documented on the internet. And even the younger people who were not here 20 years ago or 30 years ago, they can look at some of the history and say, oh, this already happened, because it's documented. And so everybody's waking up to the game, and they're trying to blame the governments or whatever and the kings of the earth. But it's not just the governments, it's corporations, it's unions, it's anybody in power playing the same games. And so these same games, they have to do a change up, and they put new people in, new faces or whatever, but it's still the same game. So they'll throw new kind of people in, they'll throw new situations that they're just mixing it up. But if you really, so let's say you wanted to confuse somebody, you'd throw a bunch of things at them that they've seen before, but you mix it up in a different order that you're like shocked that it's even happening, right? I mean, we're waking up to the Coca-Cola's bad, we're waking up to McDonald's bad, sugar causes inflammation, we're waking up to the fact that they're attacking us body, soul, and spirit. They're attacking our body, they're attacking the water. I mean, I'm starting to brush my teeth with baking soda now. And every time you say something or you observe something, there will be a video or somebody who comes online and says, oh, baking soda is bad for you. Or they'll say eggs are bad for you. They're doing a change up on the eggs. They're doing a change up. This whole thing, these people in positions of providing for people, whether it's medical, whether it's food or whatever, they might not even be government officials. They just might be lost. And the devil can take them captive at will. So if the devil can take them captive, God allows strong delusions to be sent to them, and so they can just act crazy. So there's it's the same stuff, but it's just mixed up different than what you're used to. So they're trying to mix it up. They're trying to change the routine. They're trying to change the patterns, because if they change the patterns, you won't recognize the pattern. Even though there's a deeper pattern, there's like moment by moment patterns, weekly patterns, monthly patterns, every 3 months patterns, yearly patterns, decade patterns, etc., etc., etc. But they ran these patterns. It's like a program for the flesh mind. They ran these patterns for so long that they worked really good. But since people are waking up, they're changing the moment by moment, the week by week, the month by month, the yearly patterns, and they're throwing you a curveball. Even though it's the same pattern, they're just taking it out of the normal order that it was in before so many times. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if you're willing to adjust, so when you get hit with something that hit you last year or last week or last month or whatever, when you get hit with something, realize it's the same repeat. They're just changing the patterns. They're changing the different. Okay, so they would set up this system, right? This demonic realm, the Archons, the Cosmocrators, the unseen creatures. So they set up this system, and they get their minions, their human minions, to follow this repeat pattern, right? So they're trying to set you up for an Illuminati sacrifice, if you'll let them, for back in August or September, whenever. And so they hit you with the same patterns every year. They hit you the same patterns every month. And so they keep trying to hit you with patterns to keep you in a time loop mindset. But when you wake up to the fact that you're in a repeat every day, then they have to mix up the patterns to try to confuse you and make you think you're crazy that you're not in a repeat. But you know you're in a repeat because you have to eat every day because you're hungry. The sun comes up every day. The stars come up every day. The night, the moon, the sun, it's a repeat. Everything's a repeat. And so they want to mix it up so that you don't get used to a pattern, because once you see the pattern, you can overcome because you're outside of time in Christ. The pattern actually can follow you. Instead of you following a pattern that the world sets, you can create your own patterns. This is the real matrix. The real matrix is the biggest conspiracy out there is that time is not linear. It's just a repeat. Every day's the same. And if you can understand this biggest conspiracy that's ever been portrayed on man, because man did it to himself. He dropped himself down into time because of sin. And so he ended up in the repeat. But he ended up in a destruction repeat. But you can use the befallen repeat time to improve yourself while you're still in time. Physically. You're not in time spiritually, but you're inside time physically. And so they're doing a mix-up like you ain't never seen. That's why we're seeing balloons. We know Russia and China are always together because it says that in Revelation. We know they're trying to do great draconian stuff because, even China, all their symbols are snakes, right? The dragon. So we know there's a draconian system attacking us, but the draconian system can only be in effect if they cause confusion, they cause fear, they throw you a bunch of darts, and they throw you a bunch of insanity, because they're trying to take away your, I'm not saying traditions are a good thing, but I'm saying they're trying to take away your traditions that you depended on. And God is allowing it to wake you up. If God is allowing it, it's to wake you up that you can't go by your traditions anymore. But people use traditions for stability. But you can break the time. You can have stability in Christ. You don't need a tradition. But let's say you start a tradition in your home, your family, or your community, or whatever, and then the Archons mix it up and change everything. Well, you can create a new tradition. Let it go. Let it die. Traditions are not even real. The real tradition is Jesus. Worship God. But if they mix up your traditions, start a new one. Don't let them, see, they're attacking your identity. And so you get a lot of your identity on your You work Monday through Friday, and you got this, and you go on your vacation, and you're used to turning the TV on and watching some show or whatever. They're doing a mix-up on purpose. But if you step back and look at the mix-up, they're stuck in time. The devil's stuck in time. The Archons are stuck in time. So if you step back and look at the big picture, it's still just a repeat of the same old stuff. So what you're used to weekly, monthly, yearly, whatever, they're doing a mix-up. But if you step back and look at it from a 10-year perspective or a 100-year perspective, it's the same stuff. And so that's what they're trying to do. Mess up your weekly routine, mess up because they're trying to get you to not see the repeat. It's a time loop. But you can actually sow the seed today, have it harvest tomorrow. You can sow the seed all week and have it harvest next week. You can sow the seed all month, have it harvest next month. You can sow the seed all year, have it harvest next year. They don't want you to know this. And this is what's happening. I know I'm not explaining it too well, but you can just fill in the data points and you can actually see what I'm talking about. And just pay attention next week how they attack your routine. They try to mess up your routine. They always try to do it, but now they're doing it with different stuff that they used to not do. I don't know how to explain it other than that, because I don't know your situation. I don't know your routine. But let's say once a year you would get a flat tire, right? And it upset you or whatever, but you were fixing it. It's a distraction actually to get you. That flat tire is distraction, because if you're in a steady routine, you can actually see the time loop, and you can meditate and study. So they'll throw you a curveball, a flat tire. So you kept getting this, or your battery was dying every year. And then you graduate and you say, well, you know what? I know that batteries need to be replaced every 5 years, so you replaced your battery. So then they're going to send you another distraction that instead of batteries, because you conquered that, instead of this, it might be, who knows what they'll come up with. But my point is, they'll also send people into your world that you're rubbing shoulders with, and these people change their routine at like you're shocked. Something's changed. They'll put a new person in your world. They'll take a person out of your world. These are games to traumatize you, to shock you, so that you don't see that you're actually able to be in control of the cycle instead of the cycle controlling you. You don't have to eat for 24 hours. And the way that you can see this, you might say, well, I have a hard time seeing what you're talking about. Well, the way that you can see it is start fasting. Start fasting. Don't eat. And your body will lie to you and say that you're hungry when you're not, because it's just sugar. Your body will lie to you and say that you're going to die, but you're not. You're not going to die. You're going to make it. And so when you break the food cycle, because that's the strongest desire, right? Eating, one of the strongest desires. Survival is the number one desire. But when you break the food cycle, you bring your body under subjection, and you control the cycles of your body instead of letting, like the next time you want some water. If you've had some water, let's say, I'm not talking about if you jogged around the block and you're really thirsty. I'm just saying you're sitting there watching TV or whatever you do, and you say, there's a habit. Well, I'm going to go get me some water. Is it a habit, or are you really thirsty? Well, I'm going to go get me a cracker, or I'm going to go get me some candy bar. Do you really want the candy bar, or is it just a habit? And so when you start to control the habits instead of the habits controlling you. You break the time loop, and the Archons go crazy. So what happens is they start sending you stuff to try to get you back in a pattern, back in the AI flesh mind pattern. Instead of you controlling your own thoughts, controlling your own routine or choices or food you eat, they'll throw 1,000 darts at you just to try to take you off your game. And this is really happening. And they'll throw things at you that they haven't thrown before according to that cycle. They'll throw something that happened when you were a kid, or they'll throw something that happened instead of the 5-year cycle, they would throw something that happened, you have a weekly cycle or whatever. In that 5-year cycle, they have certain things that they throw at you. Instead of you having to wait 5 years, they'll throw it within a month, and then they'll throw it again in a month, and it just keeps. They're mixing up the cycle darts. I'll call it that. The darts that they throw at different cycles, now they're throwing darts at you across the board, and it's still the same cycle, but they're trying to intermingle it so it kind of takes you off your game, or gets you out of balance, if you understand what I'm saying. So just think about what I'm saying. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but I'm telling you, that's what they're doing. Because everybody's waking up and everybody's seeing the game. And even the unsaved people are saying, wait a minute, something ain't right, something ain't right. We got a president who can't even talk. Why is he? We got unsaved people saying, why we got an 80-year-old president who's got dementia and he's a president? Something ain't right, They're starting to see some of these pawns and some of these people that are in charge are just minions. And they don't know it's the devil that's controlling them, or the magician priest class, but they know something ain't right. Something's not right. And I'll tell you what it is. They don't want you to wake up to the fact that you're in a repeat every day. Because if you wake up and you really do the meditation, you realize, hey, you can control the repeat. You can control the seed that you plant today and get a harvest tomorrow. You don't have to follow their up and down, Wile E. Coyote sine wave. You can set the pattern, and the pattern has to follow what seed you plant. You reap what you sow, right? So you better sow what you want to reap, and they don't want you to know that truth.